I mean, okay, the letter's necessary, but we're only 11 days out of a campaign. But there are certain facts now that we know. We knew this during impeachment. We know that Joe leveraged $1 billion taxpayer dollars. You got 6 hours, fire a prosecutor investigating my zero experience son being paid millions, or you're not getting the money. And then it's $3.5 million from the Russian oligarch, the First Lady of Moscow. Then it's the Kazakhstan oligarch and wire transfers that are on the record. And then, of course, it's all things China with $1.5 billion 10 days after Hunter travels with then Vice President Joe Biden to China. So I would think all of it represents pay to play and a compromised candidate.
Yeah, that's right, Sean, and that's part of the issue here. You've got a guy that looks like he's been extorting or paying for play. In other words, just simple corruption for a long period of time. And the reason we're asking for the special counsel is this meets the regulations for a special counsel. But if the president wins, and because this is going to be mounting up through the rest of the election and then beyond, if the president wins, they're going to say this is all punitive, retributive against Joe Biden by the president. And if Joe Biden was there, it's just going to get dropped. But if you get a special counsel appointed immediately, then we can persist in a non-biased way, nonpartisan way, regardless of the outcome of the elections, because this has got to be made known, because we can't have this kind of corruption in the United States.
What about how big will this issue yesterday of Mr. Bobolinsky coming out and coming public? He wants to clear his name. People seem to forget that Bevan Cooney, a Hunter Biden partner, is in jail, a convict. Devin Archer's just been convicted. He's awaiting sentencing. Bobolinsky has these 3 phones with all these text messages now that he's been able to confirm are true, that show that he was recruited for a project, and explaining that Joe Biden himself was up to his eyeballs in all of it, Louis.
Well, in addition to what Andy has said, one of the biggest reasons I feel like we've got to have this special prosecutor, especially with the things you've outlined, Sean, is we can't trust the leadership of the FBI. You know, Christopher Wray was put in there to clean up the FBI, and it sure looks like he took that as a sign he was supposed to sweep everything under the rug. There is too much evidence now. This needs a special prosecutor with his own hand-picked investigators, whether FBI or from elsewhere, to go after this stuff. This is incredible. And, you know, you've talked about it this week, but it's given a new light, to me at least, to Hunter. You know, I was thinking he was such a big, bad criminal in all this, but you look at his text to his daughter that, you know, at least, you know, to his daughter, he says, at least you don't have to pay the big guy, you know, 50% of what you make. You know, did Biden shove Hunter into all these positions that got him paid so he could funnel the money? And the biggest question remaining unasked last night, and naturally the moderator didn't ask it, is you say you weren't paid by the foreign countries. Did they pay your family, and your family have to pay you?
I mean, all great questions, but the reality is if you're the son of the vice president and you don't have any experience in oil, gas, energy, you don't have any experience in Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Russia, or China, and you're getting all of these lucrative deals, one must ask, well, why are they paying you millions of dollars? Why are you getting $1.5 billion deal with the Bank of China rather than, say, Deutsche Bank or Goldman Sachs or J.P. Morgan or whatever the group happens to be, Paul Gozer? And the reality is they're buying access. To what extent does that compromise any candidate for any office?
It compromises all across the board, Sean. And it's willful, because when you start looking at particularly China, the Aviation Industry Corporation of China, and the involvement with CFIUS in regards to the Henninge's transaction, this was a dual company that was sold to China, and it didn't, and it went through CFIUS. I need to remind you that was the same thing that happened with uranium-1, and this was an anti-vibration technology. So there was a willful negotiation through the process to avoid CFIUS's disclusion, and that's why Senator Grassley is looking at this. This is willfully done. This is not haphazard.
We have something going on in this country, and that is we have massive amounts of money, incalculable amounts of money, going directly to elect Joe Biden, and it's coming from big tech companies, social media companies, and the media mob itself. When Bob Alinsky holds this press conference yesterday, no major news outlet except for the Fox News channel actually covered the press conference. There has been, as we now know, even NPR and most other news organizations have just made the editorial decision that they're going to help Joe Biden get elected any way they can. And what is there, if anything, Andy Biggs, Congress can do, considering that would be, by any estimation, an in-kind donation of amounts of money that I can't even begin to fathom?
Yeah, Sean, that's right. I mean, and it's, in my opinion, it is an in-kind donation. It's an FEC violation because they're not reporting that as an in-kind donation. They're not providing equal access. They're actually suppressing information. So what Congress needs to be doing is we need to be investigating that. We need to see if there's loopholes that they're using to engage in this. But moreover, Sean, as we see this, Bob Alinsky himself, he's basically indicated that there were multiple deals, and you've mentioned it when you said China, Ukraine, etc., and Russia. You're talking about multiple deals with multiple partners, and he has multiple partners in prison and that are sitting there. And when all this comes out, both the FEC stuff that's going on with this press that's so bad, and all of these additional business entities that Hunter Biden and the Biden syndicate was working through, I think we're going to find that this was a totally corrupt situation, and that's why it needs to be investigated, both sides, the high-tech sides and the publication side, because they are suppressing this to defeat President Trump. Especially
things like Facebook and Twitter, Louis Gohmert, they get Section 230 protections against liability because they're supposed to just be sites that provide a venue for people to put content up. But once they begin to edit one point of view over another point of view, shouldn't those protections at a minimum be taken away?
They absolutely should. And one of our judiciary hearings, one of the IT giants said, look, we just want to be treated like your friends at Fox News. And I go, exactly. And Fox News can be sued, and you can't, and we need you to have liability lifted so people can go after you. But well, Sean, you put your finger on exactly why the media feels comfortable not asking the tough questions that you do, and that is because they know that people will go straight to the internet if they have a question. Really? Did that happen? And they'll look it up, Google, Twitter, Facebook, and they won't find it. Their algorithms will keep it hidden, and these reporters know that. They know that the IT monopolies have their back. Those monopolies have got to be busted up.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, Paul Gozer. Does that happen next? And how quickly can that be done? And where do you see the congressional races running and the Senate races running in this election year?
Well, going to your first part of that question, Sean, what I look at in the censorship aspect is that you got to get rid of the Section 230. Because if you use antitrust, all you're doing is you're taking the 5 big sharks and taking them and moving them down to a school of piranha. You're going to get eaten either way, but it's just size of the bite. So you've got to get rid of that Section 230, which I've got a bill that Senator Cruz and Loeffler and Matt Gaetz and others have actually looked at. In fact, the Attorney General has actually outlined it and basically discloses what is legal language, illegal language. and then put us the burden of proof on to the platforms. So there's something out there, and we can get it done. It won't be done before the election, but the administration has done what they can, and that is the antitrust application, because that is one way they can put them on notice. However, when you start looking at what ABC John Dickerson said, I mean, he said bluntly, they got an ally and they got his back, and that's horrible. When you look at elections across the country, in the state of Arizona, you can't help. You know, on Monday, I got a huge sunburn because I was with the president for 5 hours in the sunshine of Arizona. There were tens and tens of thousands of people from rural Arizona pouring in to see the president. You don't see that anywhere around the Biden aspect.
We need Arizona. Some of the polls have been close out there. We can't lose Arizona for sure.